All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Six Scale Scavenger podcast, focusing on Star Wars and Marvel hot toy collecting. My name is Brian Fontaine, joined as always by my good friend Chris Letty, aka the Vintage Viewport. Welcome if you're new, and welcome back if you're a returning listener. Chris, we're trying to push for a third episode in the month of January. Fired up the old flux capacitor, get this up to 1.1 gigawatts of awesomeness here, and just see where it goes.
Yeah, first time going for 3 episodes in 1 month. Digging it. I don't know if it'll be a norm, but we're making it happen this month anyway.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was thinking about it, and we try to do every 2 weeks, but the full disclosure, the plan that we had with Libsyn, which is our podcast host provider, basically the size of the episodes we've been having. At one point, I thought it was going to be enough to support, 3 pretty good length episodes, and really we've been running out of space after 2 because each of these episodes have been running over an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, which I don't think really anybody's complaining. I mean, we're all podcast consumers. I mean, there's a lot of other great shows out there. I know Collecting Weekly, I was catching up on that earlier today with Zach and the gang. They're doing some really good stuff. Thumbs up to their audio, kicked it up a notch. So I would like to give shout outs. They usually mention us on theirs as well. But yeah, so Chris, we're going to give it a shot. And, we're a little light on news. We do have a pretty exciting figure to talk about with Luke Skywalker Deluxe from The Last Jedi. I eagerly anticipated this figure for 13, 14 months from the initial pre-order. It was one of the first ones I had ordered on Sideshow, and I am so glad to have it in hand, and it just blows everything out of the park of expectation-wise. It's literally, I think it's going to be a sleeper success. I think a lot of people waited on this one, and hopefully they don't end up regretting it.
Yeah, I'm pretty psyched to talk about that figure. I know you've been waiting for it. We will discuss in further in our review.
Chris, you and I have been pretty busy lately. I've been busy with work. You've been busy with work at all. But I know that this past weekend you had a little jaunt down to New York City, which is 4 to 5 hours from where we are here in New Hampshire. So I figured you got to have a pretty cool collecting story to go with this.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to go check out a pretty sweet collection. It's small, but man, it hit on so many levels. My buddy Kevin Mann from Manly Toys up here, we trekked down to Upper Manhattan, went and visited a fellow Star Wars. His main focus is Star Wars collecting, vintage. Yeah, it was an Empire State Star Wars Collectors Club meetup.
Okay.
I asked a few members before I was planning on potentially going, and they're like, if you get a chance to go see this collection in person, go see it. So that's when I asked the wife if I could take a weekend to myself, and she said, yeah, sure. And very thankful for that. So when I got there, I kind of knew some of the stuff he had. This particular collector, he's been on the show Comic Book Men a couple times. He's pretty prominent in the vintage Star Wars collecting community, made appearances on multiple podcasts. So people kind of know what he's got. But right when I walked into his apartment, I mean, mind you, it's a 1-bedroom, really nice apartment, but he's got, let's see, 5 display cases in there. And right when I walked in, I saw a case that had Amazing Fantasy number 15, Avengers 1, first appearance of Iron Man. Jeez, he had Fantastic Four number 1, X-Men number 1, just all signed by Stan Lee.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that was just one row of this one case. I mean, we're talking original artwork for some of the Superpowers figures line in the 80s, unproduced figures, pre-production figures for that series. That was just the tip of what he's got. He had unproduced figures from Mego, the action figure line from the 70s. stuff that's been shown on the show Toy Hunter. He had the original photo art for the Tusken Raider from, the original first 12 figures. I mean, just one of one items. And so, I'm chatting with everybody and, everybody's having a good time. And then I go around another corner and two different rocket firing Boba Fett's.
Two?
Yeah, two. He's got two. I mean, just amazing stuff. The only carded known example that was used at Toy Fair in 1979. It's just pre-production items for Boba Fett, every foreign carded variation of Boba Fett. I mean, just jaw dropping. I know.
Sounds it, yeah.
So yeah, it was a great time, and I was able to meet one of our listeners, Chris Vargas. So I was really happy to chat with him. He's got a great growing collection of Hot Toys. He's doing Marvel and Star Wars. So it was nice to see, one of our listeners in person. And I had kind of seen his name floating around in some of the groups. He's in the group. But yeah, that's not even it. He had this collector. He's really into these foreign bootleg figures from Turkey. They're called Uzais, and they're extremely rare and they're extremely desirable. And he's got a full run of them with variations. It's just nuts, some of the stuff. I mean, just a collection that it's small, but like I said, every piece is just so key. And I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to go see something like that in person. I don't know. It's just when it's one thing to see these items on Facebook or online, but then when you see them in person, you can really appreciate the rarity and what they mean historically as far as like toys and collecting go. It's just an honor to go, and we raised money for charity, and it was just, just a great time hanging out with some vintage Star Wars collectors and some Hot Toys collectors. I was actually pretty surprised.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's I know when you said you were heading down, I was slightly jealous, not gonna lie. No, it sounds like a great time. And obviously, talk collecting, that's never a bad thing. I know we all tend to do it online. Yeah, just like you and I do, even though we live in the same state.
I know, right?
But yeah, that's cool. So, Chris, we're going to go from your New York state of mind to some collecting news, and we do have a few things. Unfortunately, we don't have a new figure release, and as we record here, it's less than a week to the start of the Chinese New Year, and Hot Toys is probably going to be shutting down operations for probably 2 to 3 weeks, and for a good chunk of February here, which is kind of disappointing for collectors worldwide. But we can also honestly, we can appreciate the fact that the holiday is celebrated, and there's not a terrible amount they're going to be able to do in that time period anyways. I know we're all dying for Captain Marvel releases and Avengers Endgame and some Star Wars releases here at some point for episode 9. But I'll be patient about it. I'm carefully calculating my budget dollars in the meantime. It's not a bad thing to kind of have a little bit of a pause. I mean, I still feel like I'm reeling from that Infinity War gauntlet that we went through there at the end of 2018.
That's me, man. I'm just hunkering down, kind of stashing away those rewards points, not really making any major Hot Toys purchases, and just kind of seeing where things go. I'm going to be kind of boring for a little stretch here, but it's all good.
I dare say, and this is not a good thing to lead the podcast off with, but I think this is going to be the most boring collection update we've ever had, because neither of us actually added anything for the first time.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah. Anyway, so Chris, let's talk news. And I think one of the most pretty sure pressing things in kind of the Hot Toys collecting community right now, or just collecting community in general, is we got a new website from Sideshow, and it looks very similar to the old one. And they told us there'd be some new bells and whistles that are there. Speaking of burying the lead here, Chris, we tend to be positive as possible here, but there are some opportunities for Sideshow to handle their operation a little bit better. The conversion to the new website could have gone a little bit smoother. There are some outstanding issues that they're aware of that they're looking to correct, mentioning those reward points. I'm actually one of those people that are impacted. There seems to be an issue with some order emails that went out to the incorrect individuals. Not really a great thing when you're talking about customer privacy. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they'll fix that out. That's my day job, is customer service and dealing with people's private information. So when I saw that, I was like, ooh, not good. And as you and I were talking before we hit the record button, some of our best conversations happened then, you were saying that a lot of the sites just not really loading as well as it eventually will. So we're less than 24 hours or so from that update going, but I don't know. Let's focus on the positive here, Chris. So some of the things that maybe you've seen so far that you think you're going to end up liking.
I mean, there's just some of the layouts of the lists and some of the pages. I mean, it looks fine to me. I just, like we said, gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Some of the stuff doesn't always go smoothly. As far as what I'm going to use, I still haven't really dug in too deep on the desktop. The mobile version seems a little bit more user friendly as far as the way the screens are and that sort of thing. So we'll kind of just see how things go, but I'm optimistic, and I think they'll get it squared away. How about you?
Yeah, so I checked out the wish list thing, and I want to say it's maybe been a feature they've had in the past, but I think it's a little bit more prominent. So I took a test, and I went through and I just added a couple random figures to my list. Last night, I made it public. I went ahead and shared it in our private Facebook group, Six Skull Scavenger Collectors, and everyone was able to see it. I think Roy had mentioned that he was surprised that those are the only 3 figures on my list. So Roy, I did go ahead and update that. And actually, just for simplistic sake, I know I have my order page that shows any open orders I have, but I added all the figures that I currently have on pre-order to my wish list, even though I know I'm already going to get them. And then as I see new figures that are teased and released, I'll add them at that point. I'm also kind of giving myself a pep talk here, Chris, that it's like one of those things, if I was going to make a decision, I was going to do it. I feel like I already would. And there's so many of these figures that I keep window shopping. We're talking about a boring update. I can't tell how many times I come back to Thanos or Bucky, mostly on the Marvel side right now. But I'm also telling myself there's an onslaught of figures coming, and I want to make sure that as much as some of those figures are pretty cool, I want to stay true to my focus as much as I can and not fall to the new shiny object that looks really cool.
I was checking out that wish list feature. The first one I added was Thanos. That one, man, I do keep going back to it. It's funny how perception changes, because when that figure was originally released or went up for pre-order, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting that figure. There's just no way. But now we're so close to it being released, and I'm like, I really think I want that figure, but I'm going to, like I was saying, I'm saving up my rewards, and I've got a decent amount, and I think if it does release and we see some in-hand photos, you can probably guess that it's going to go on my pre-order list. But I don't know. That's a neat feature, and I think I'm going to mess around with it kind of like what you did.
Yeah, so one other thing too, I mentioned it. It looks like they're trying to still square away some gift card and reward code issues. I mentioned I'm kind of impacted there. I went through and manually calculated what I would expect to be there for reward points based on my open orders and recently shipped. And it looks like, Chris, the points that I might be missing are some figures that are in that like 40-day window of them having shipped to me. I now have them in hand, but I need to wait for that 40-day window. So when I calculate that all up, it should eventually correct itself. So needless to say, the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group that they have for, Sideshow collectors, hasn't really been that kind to them, and I feel really bad for the admins and employees of that. I have to imagine, and this is just me having experience kind of in, like I said, in the customer service industry. Sideshow probably didn't do the website themselves. They probably had somebody else doing it for them. And as much as they probably tested a lot of this stuff in advance, anytime you can have something work in a test environment, and as soon as you go live with it, that's when kind of the streams can get crossed, to use a Ghostbusters term. So we'll see. Well, like you said, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, we're still going to shop with them. I mean, they're our website of choice to get our collectibles from, especially Hot Toys, and we'll see how it goes.
100%, man.
All right, so let's talk about some figures that we do have to talk about here, Chris. And we knew Black Panther was coming out, and I'm pretty sure this one hit the mark in terms of when it was originally expected. It looked like it may have been a little bit early at one point, but I feel like it still came out pretty close to the projected release date. So we got Black Panther released in Hong Kong on July 24th. It was literally a couple days after we dropped our last episode. And obviously, people have it in hand. We now have YouTubers, Justin's Collection out there, that have already a review. I was kind of just speed watching it a little bit ago just because I was really curious to see kind of the suit material and maybe some early thoughts on having that figure in hand. Duh. Infamously, Chris, this is one of those figures I had on pre-order and canceled it. I know this is a figure that was on your list. Hopefully it still is. And you're going to get impacted by this. What are your thoughts?
So I'm initially, some of the photos that people were posting, I was a little bit leery on the way the suit looked on the body, but the more and more I looked at it, I'm really excited to add Black Panther to my collection. I haven't had a chance to watch Justin's video yet. I'm definitely going to do that, but I'm dying for this figure. I feel like Black Panther, there's a hole in my collection currently that needs to be filled, and we'll probably be getting emails on when those will be ready from Sideshow. Hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would think that it would be right in that time frame.
I know a lot of people that saw those promotional images they released on the day that it hit Secret Base were extremely skeptical of it. Again, another phrase that we have is don't read the Facebook comments for the Hot Toys group, just because you're going to get the where's Cyborg, where's Vulture. A lot of people were critical of the lighting used and super critical of the head sculpt of Chadwick Boseman. And to be honest, he looks just like T'Challa. I mean, from what I've seen, and especially from people having it in hand, it looks fine to me. I think it's so easy to be hypercritical of these collectibles. As we always say, we're not experts. We're not trying to be the voice. We're just trying to be a voice, and we're just giving our opinion of it. We're no more qualified than anybody else, but we're doing this for the love of collecting, and we're not trying to make a profit off this. We're just having a conversation about collecting, just like any of our listeners would, given the opportunity. I mean, this line is so niche still that you talk to anybody and say, "Oh, I collect Hot Toys." They're like, "What?" So it has a long way to go into becoming a little bit more mainstream, but I think anybody that does collect this line or knows of it, and we talk to some of our listeners all the time, and they'll say, so and so, or family or friends come over and they just stop and they see their collection and like, what is that? And it's an instant conversation piece because they're so detailed, they're so lifelike. I don't know. There's so many things in this world to hate on. I think you don't need to hate on an image you see on the internet that you don't even have in hand in front of you.
Preach it.
I'm off my soapbox, my friend.
Know. Jump off.
Feel like we're a bunch of curmudgeons as usual.
I know, right? Yeah, like you said, some of the lighting was a little bit off, but again, I'll judge it for myself when I have it in hand. I think it looks great. I think the sculpt is close enough to Chadwick Boseman that I wouldn't really think it's anybody else. But anyway, we'll see. I will have that in hand hopefully sometime next month or the month after. We'll see.
So other exciting news, and this one impacts both of us, is we got the email from Sideshow that although Doctor Strange has already released in Hong Kong, and it was really at the beginning of the calendar year, that Sideshow is going to start shipping on February 7th. Literally a week from when we record here, that's going to start coming out. For some reason, Chris, I was thinking it was going to be the tail end of February, if not maybe the beginning of March. So this is a welcome news. I love getting those emails. Like I say, like I've said before, I love going into some of the hot toy collecting Facebook groups out there, like Tashi Station and our own, and just seeing people getting excited that they know that the figure's on the way. I think we all know as collectors that there's no way we can possibly afford all this stuff. It's pretty special to get those emails. I don't want to make light of that. I think that's one of the reasons why we have this podcast is you get that excited about knowing you've got something on the way. And I think if it was anything else, and if it was not like the the high end collectibles that they are, I don't think it would mean as much. But I don't know. Call me a nerd. I like that stuff.
You're a nerd. I'm a nerd. We're all nerds. I love it. It's a different kind of collecting feeling. Just that moment you get confirmation. Hey, this is when you're going to get your really highly detailed, crazy, nice action figure. I'm really looking forward to getting Doctor Strange. Again, another hole in my collection. I know a lot of people that have version 1 maybe aren't going for version 2, and I know a lot of people missed out on version 1. So it's nice that we're going to get that. Yeah, it is important to just sit back and take it in that we're fortunate enough to be able to get these collectibles. Sometimes I went through a patch last year when I was just getting a whole bunch of them in short periods of time, and hadn't really been able to. I still haven't been able to enjoy some of those figures. They kind of just got put up on the shelf, and that's it. Definitely take in these figures, enjoy them. I know he goes by Gare Bear on our group. He just got a couple of figures, and he was so excited. His wife picked him up, and he had them displayed. So it's great to see that joy from fellow collectors, and I feel it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, probably the most exciting news we'll have to talk about in this episode because the collection update that we like to do. We like to be transparent with our collecting habits. I think it helps us be genuine. Like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, we're not out there buying every figure. There's no way we can. And a lot of our audio reviews are slanted towards being overly positive just because you and I work really hard to be able to not only provide for our families, pay our bills, but then it's having this other joy that you can kind of look forward to. And I'm certainly not going to spend my hard-earned dollars on figures that I don't want. Let me just put it that way. So if I've taken the time to go ahead and pre-order something, I might be nitpicky about a few things here and there, but overall, unless I'm just overly disappointed or Hot Toys really just misses the mark, that is just kind of what it is. It's a fun little exercise just to kind of go through an audio review.
Absolutely. So what kind of updates do you have?
And this is just actually as of today. I know our good friend Mark in Pennsylvania, he's getting his collection going. We had the opportunity to bring him on in our private Facebook group. We've done 2 of them. One was a test. One's technically air quotes official, but we had another live podcast in the group where we brought people on the live stream. So we had a chance to bring Mark on this past one. You can still watch the archive if you are, approved to join our group. He's getting his collection going. And, I was kind of paring mine down a little bit. Him and I talk pretty often. He's a good friend. And sometimes we just talk about football. So, he's a big Eagles fan. And so, as I was kind of paring my collection down, I reached out to him, because I know he's focusing on Star Wars. There's a few figures. I recently parted a couple weeks ago with my Han Solo. Kind of came to an accord for the Obi-Wan Kenobi that I had from A New Hope. So I'll be sending that out in the mail tomorrow to Mark. Again, it's just kind of important to just going back to that collecting thing, and it's not always about extracting every dollar out of everything. There's opportunities to kind of create win-win scenarios for everybody involved. So I think it's a good deal for both of us, and he's throwing an extra shore trooper vintage carded on top of that when he gets that in to me, just because I was gonna chase one down, and I told him. He just like, yeah, don't give me a shout out on the podcast, but Mark, I'm doing it anyways. So he's just a really great guy. Glad to have him in the community, and he just embodies that just having fun with collecting. He's a good friend to have, and glad to have him as a listener. So yeah, I'll be sending that out to him. Sad to see it go because it's such a great figure. Is just like looks the likeness to Alec Guinness is just spot on. It's one of the first Star Wars figures that Hot Toys produced at the beginning, tail end of 2014, beginning of 2015. Just a really good figure. As we kind of pare our collection down, refocus, I think it's important to be willing to, part of the figure every so often.
Yeah, we just gotta, reevaluate. We always talk about it, figuring out what direction you're gonna go in.
And obviously, I didn't add anything. I didn't add any pre-orders. So as I said, I've been doing a lot of window shopping. Sometimes that's kind of fun too. So Chris, I don't think you have anything to add this week either, huh?
No, no purchases, no Hot Toys purchases. Just continuing to go through my collection of non-Hot Toys items. I purged a whole bunch of Marvel Legends. Still a bunch more to go, but man, those things are selling like hotcakes on eBay. It's just craziness. I did not expect these Marvel Legends to go so good, and they've put a good chunk of change in the bank. And I'm always buying and selling stuff to flip for collecting funds. But yeah, it's just fun to, I had fun with them. The kids had fun with them, and now they're going on to other homes. But yeah, I know a lot of other collectors have been trying to purge some of their collections as well. And it's good. It's good to have your collection fund itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked a couple episodes ago about, using your collection as a form of currency. And if I remember correctly, I think Air Bear, who's one of our listeners, actually also, like you, sold a bunch of Marvel Legends. And I think he was able to get 2 Iron Man figures from Sideshow. That is just cool. I mean, that just makes getting those figures, extra special. I think it's just important. The other update, and I had a video that I posted in our private Facebook group. I was way overdue to do a collection tour update. Now, the room I have is my office. It's my podcast recording space. It's also where I have my detox. And so I went through and did a video walkthrough, no audio, just looking at things and just kind of panning it around. And it was pretty cool. I kind of had tidied up my space. It had been kind of like you. I'd been selling a bunch of stuff lately. I felt like I had a bunch of just shipping stuff laying around, newspaper and boxes and tape and everything. So I tidied up a little bit, decided I was going to share that, and seemed to go well. And it sparked a lot of our other listeners to do the same. And, this is the part of the podcast we're going to gush about our, a private group a little bit because it's an extension of this podcast. And, you and I were talking, both you and I were really not available this past weekend, but the funny thing is the show goes on. Everybody was contributing. It was a bunch of people sharing collection video updates. Some people just took photos of their collection and shared it. We've had a bunch of people doing live. Mark did a live unboxing of a Darth Maul figure we had Mila came on and did a couple videos live for the Luke Skywalker that she got from Sideshow, answered a bunch of questions. And it's just so cool, Chris, to have this be bigger than us, because that's really what I always wanted, because you and I aren't experts, and just kind of creating that space that we would want to be a part of. And it's it's just really cool, and that people are comfortable enough and want to share their stuff and share their knowledge with somebody like Mila, who's just fantastic at doing. We've talked about our last episode too, about just the painting that she's able to do. I mean, dare I say it rivals a lot of what the Hot Toys and Sideshow companies are out there doing. I think it's just cool to see something come from, just an unpainted face sculpt to something that, and you were the recipient of, the Peggy Carter sculpt that she had done. It's so cool. I could go on and on about that. If you're not part of the group, and you're definitely missing out. If the conversations are very similar, Chris, to you and I have on the podcast. It's very casual. It's not boisterous. There's not people just dropping links and running. We've been able to converse with a lot of those other, we got PJ, the Paradox Nerd, at Zach collecting weekly, and the crew he's got out in Texas, and John Martino, Taji Station. The cool thing is we all seem to be in this together to kind of help everybody out.
I love it, man. It's great. It's a great feeling to have this cool little community going, growing, getting new members all the time. Remember to answer those questions when you're trying to join, but it's awesome. Other members like Allison, she did a live video showing off her 3D printer that they just got, and just everybody sharing, and just show us your collections. Just put out content, just interact. It's just awesome. I mean, we're just growing and just having a good time. Yeah, it's like our children are.
I think I used the term when you and I were texting back and forth. I'm like, I feel like the proud papa.
Right. Yeah, I know. No.
So anyways, gush session over. Yeah. So we asked for some topics, Chris, to talk about in this episode 14 here. And we got a lot of them, and I think a lot of them are probably going to be better suited for one of our live streams that we'll do. It was definitely a lot of the questions more tended to be like an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So definitely, I think we're going to want to cover those on one of those. But, Chris, the one thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about, because and this isn't anything I have any answers, I just want to kind of throw it out there and see where the discussion goes. Having just tidied up my collecting space this past weekend, and I'll cut right to the chase. So a lot of the figures I have, a lot of the diecast Iron Man figures I have, I have the boxes, and I have a small little closet in my office. It's inverses with our stairs coming onto the second floor. There's some space in there. I don't have a ton of it, and actually, because of the angle of the stairs, I don't have a lot of floor space. Everything's kind of on shelves up above. So right now, Chris, I just counted before we went on the air. I have 15 Hot Toy boxes that are up there. And because they have just so many accessories or batteries or big diorama stands, that I'm just like, I can't really put these in Tupperwares and bags and stuff because it would just take up just as much space. And I'm like, well, a lot of the other figures I have everything in kind of like a larger plastic storage bag, Ziploc, and in between, like having all the different hands or any of the other accessories that comes with it, making sure I put in the little Hot Toys instruction pamphlet with each, so I know kind of what accessories go with what. But I got to thinking, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And I've seen people use like fishing tackle boxes and stuff, or crafting cases and stuff to kind of split out accessories and stuff. And I'm like, not only do I feel like that would help me in my space issues, but I feel like if some of the accessories were a little bit more, lack of a better term, accessible, that I'd be more apt to repose things. And then that was something else that kind of came up as a discussion topic in our Facebook group not that long ago of, how often do you repose things? And I'm kind of one of those like set it and forget it, but I would love to start changing up poses every so often. But, to go and find the specific accessories, in a big Tupperware drawer of what plastic bags are there. Oh, I got to, make sure I don't have all these boxes fall on my head after I pull out one specific Iron Man box. I don't know, Chris, I'm rambling. Save me here, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's a good ramble. it's a problem that everybody deals with. It doesn't matter how big your house is, you're always going to fill it with stuff. The box situation is tough. Some markets, they don't even keep the boxes, you know, they can only have the figures. They don't have any room for even the art boxes and that sort of thing, let alone being able to keep everything that the figure comes with. And but the tackle box thing, go to Michael's or Craft Hobby Lobby or something, and just walk the aisles and see what sparks sparks some ideas. Or I kind of think if maybe the detofs were raised and you had like a if you had a little cabinet underneath and you
Hmm.
could have them all in those little bins, kind of by figure, get a little label maker and have, each little drawer or whatever have the accessories for those particular figures. So they're right there. You can kind of mix and match, use other ones with other figures. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where the inaccessibility of them is definitely going to deter you from messing with the figures, because you're gonna have to go find the box and dig through it and that sort of thing. So it's hard to say what the best scenario is, because it depends on your particular situation and how much display space you have, and where you can put those bins and that sort of thing. But I don't know. It's a tough call. I'm one to speak. I mean, I don't even have my figures on display.
Yeah, well, you've got a
And
situation where you're in the process of building a house.
right.
That's, as we've talked about on other podcasts, you've got an excuse.
Yeah. So I mean, I just have my figures. Every time we do a review of one, I'll pull the figure out, take everything out, take the pictures, kind of have it sitting on my desk while we're doing the review. And then I literally pack it back up as close to it came as possible. I mean, slide in the foam back in, put in the baggies on the hands and the feet. I mean, I do it all, put it all back, because I don't know how long they're going to be sitting in there until I can pull them out again. So I want them to be as safe as possible. And I just have mine stacked up on Home Depot plastic shelving units, all lined up, and I just make do with what I have now. I mean, I'm so lazy that Yondu and Mark IV are still sitting out half put together. I just it's kind of a pain in the ass to put them all back together. But I'm kind of anal like that. I want to make sure that they're all back the way that they came out. I know. I think it's Roy. He's got this like storage unit, or it's like a storage closet or something at his house or apartment or whatever. And it's just, he sent a picture and it's just literally stacked from the floor to the ceiling of boxes and that sort of thing. And I don't know.
Yeah, there's no good real answer. I mean,
No.
a lot of this stuff is just kind of getting people thinking about it, or, somebody else may have a similar, concern or maybe an idea or something like that. So, if you think you could help me out or eventually help Chris out, definitely reach out to us either on social media. We've got sixskillscavengers@gmail.com for an email address, the website, the contact page, all of that. And yeah, we'd love to hear. But yeah, I think you're right, Chris. I think I'm going to be hitting up, Michael's or a craft store at some point, or Amazon's always an option too. But I don't really, I'm not sure I want to buy something sight unseen, because it might look like it's big enough in the picture. And even if they tell you the dimensions, I want to make sure that it would, suffice. So instead, I guess having a stack of 15 boxes in my closet, I might end up with a stack of however many figures I have, and little craft boxes that have all the little gadgets and stuff in there. I like your idea for the label maker. That is the definition of a nerd right there.
I've got to have them all organized in a certain pattern.
You say that now, but it's not that inaccurate.
No, it's not. I'm so bad. All my vintage carded figures are all encased in acrylic, and they all, on every single box, I have like every single detail you could possibly think of, so that way I know where they are and how to find them. So I'm one to speak.
Yeah, well, that's why we have this podcast. So, all right, I think it's time, Chris, to kick into our audio review of our feature figure of the episode, which happens to be Luke Skywalker Deluxe from The Last Jedi, MMS 458. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, Chris, this is a figure that, get ready for it, day one pre-order. This one I
Oh yeah.
pre-ordered. Oh yeah, is right. I pre-ordered this all the way back on December 11th, 2017. Literally, I think it was a couple days before The Last Jedi hit theaters. And this one shipped to me from Sideshow on January 11th, 2019. My math's really bad, but it looks like to be about 13 months. Now, this figure was available a little bit earlier overseas in Hong Kong, and Sideshow was a little slow to get it, which, I don't mind, for a quality figure. I was actually hoping that it was kind of going to wait until after the holidays just for my budget's sake. But this is one I had budgeted for a long time, so it was nice to be able to kind of finally tick that off. I think I had this on a payment plan, and my last payment on this payment plan just kept getting pushed out, I think all the way from October to January. And I know we've mentioned it, and I want to say it's John Martino over at Tashi Station had kind of coined the strategy when you've got a figure on a payment plan and you get to that final, you have one payment left, actually switching your figure then to a one-time payment. So as soon as it becomes available at Sideshow, it'll ship to you in the event that it becomes available sooner than whatever day of the month you've selected for that final payment to come out. Now, I do think, and I haven't actually gotten this email myself, Chris, but I do feel like I've seen people get emails from Sideshow asking, do you want to, pay this off early so that you can get it? But I'm more of, as soon as it's available, send it to me.
I have gotten that email several times, so it's a nice option. But I've used it a couple times, but for the most part, I kind of just stick to the plan, kind of, sort of.
Whatever that is.
Right.
But anyway, so this is one that just based on the promotional images, I knew I needed to have at the time. Luke Skywalker was a focus of mine, still is. And to be honest, Chris, I think by the time I'd actually pre-ordered this, I wasn't even sure that I was going to collect Marvel. I think that was a month or two after that I think it was like the Avengers Infinity War trailer that was, and I may have actually even seen the trailer leading up to watching Last Jedi in the theaters, that I was like, holy cow, I really like Marvel. And it kind of brought back a lot of those feels over the last 10 years. And the rest is kind of history, and obviously kind of led to this podcast. So I was just super amped about this figure. I thought the promotional images looked great. At the time when we got those, like I said, it was a few days before The Last Jedi hit theaters. We didn't really know what to expect from the character or what it would mean that we were all seeing there. We're not going to get into a like or dislike of The Last Jedi, but I think, Chris, and this is going to not be hopefully too much hyperbole, I want to say, Chris, this is probably one of the best Star Wars releases they've done to date. And I don't think a lot of people pre-ordered this. And I feel like in time, this could be one of those figures that ends up being maybe a little bit more on the rarer side for the Star Wars. And we've talked about it at length. I feel like Marvel has lapped Star Wars maybe once over, maybe even twice over worldwide in terms of popularity. But of all the Star Wars releases that they've had recently, like this to me, it feels like it's one of the best. It's a popular character. And I think this one's going to be desirable for quite some time.
Man, I got to echo everything you said. I feel the same way. I think I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in person, but just from the promotional images and, from people's in hand pictures and you did unboxing, right? It was this figure, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So it looks great. I love Luke Skywalker. if I was to do Star Wars, the Star Wars Hot Toys, this one would definitely be on my must-have list. Yeah, man. What were your initial impressions and stuff?
And I have it on the same shelf as the Luke Skywalker from The Force Awakens. That figure, it's probably one of the weakest in my collection. I feel like they cut a lot of corners about it. I think also when they had to produce that figure, I think the character of Luke Skywalker was just shrouded in mystery from a lot of people, and I don't think that they had a lot to go from in terms of source material. And this, they definitely got a reprieve, with this next version. It's just light years better than that one. The head sculpt wise is so much better. It looks a lot more like Mark Hamill does. The clothing and everything is so much better material wise. Even the first version that is, his Jedi outfit from the end of The Force Awakens. I'm just looking at it here and I'm just going back comparing to the first version. And Hot Toys for a while had a problem with oversized hands. And the original Luke Skywalker one, his hands were just enormous. And it's to the point where I kind of have a tendency to kind of hide them around his robe just because they're huge. And yeah, but I won't harp on that first figure at all. This one's just fantastic. I mean, the head sculpt is incredible. There has so much depth to it. It's one of the best they've done on the Star Wars license. The clothing is just immaculate, and the having the rain poncho, that I don't know if that came with the standard one or not, but it did come with the deluxe. So yeah, the poncho does come with both versions. I'm pretty sure. The deluxe version that we're going to talk about does come with a couple extra accessories that we'll talk about in a few minutes. I literally can't get enough about this figure. They did such a good job with the clothing, the accessories. Yeah, it just has a lot of presence. And regardless of how, like I said, however you feel about the film, I know that I saw in a lot of groups, and I feel like we had a member in our group too, maybe Mike, that was kind of debating between getting this version and the crate Luke Skywalker that's going to hopefully come out later this year. And of course, there's that meme out there of the little girl, and it's like, well, why not both? That's my motto, because I'm getting both. But he did have it, and Mike got that in hand, and just was very glad that he did, because it wasn't even a decision between which version was better. I think they're just going to both end up being just fantastic, fantastic figures.
Yeah, it's when you start going this or that, you got to kind of break it down and see which one, really fits best in your collection. Man, this figure, I just can't get over. I'm really looking at all the images, and I can't start going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, don't go to the dark side. This would not be a bad one if you decided to, but
Yeah.
It literally would be like the dam breaking, and you would be in ruin, and you'd probably end up canceling pre-orders on the Marvel side. And just don't do that to yourself, my friend.
Yeah. I'll just come over to your place and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess a couple of the nitpicky things, getting into the accessory talk. This one only came with 6 total hands, 3 right hand gloved hands with the brown leather glove, and then 3 non-gloved hands. And you actually, when I was posing it, I actually had to give some thought of exactly what I was going to be looking for him to do, because the gloved hand has a relaxed hand, a hand for holding, and then an open hand. And then the left hand is a relaxed hand, a gripping hand, and a gesturing hand, which is kind of like, kind of reaching out with a force. And that's the one pose that I have now. And on the right hand, I currently have him holding his walking staff that it comes with, not the lightning rod that he pulls off the top of the hut to battle with Rey. It works. Like I mentioned, having the outfit that he does, the black poncho is incredible. Obviously, it's fake leather, but it just has a ton of texture and depth to it. And that's what I have it displayed. The boots are pretty good. The leg wrappings are some of the better ones that they've done. I mean, I literally anything about the outfit, I have no complaints about whatsoever. It does come with a lightsaber. I think it was just one of those things they included. They didn't really know that he was going to have it, and to be quite honest, for canon, whatever that means, he does not actually even hold the lightsaber in this outfit. It was the outfit that he had at the end of The Force Awakens. Like I mentioned with the deluxe, he does come with the lightning rod. I don't have it displayed with it. It's decent. I mean, it's pretty ho hum. I definitely wouldn't want to pose it with that. I might end up sticking it in the backpack. And speaking of the backpack, that alone was worth getting the deluxe version of this figure. It's super detailed. It's got his little milk jug on there. You can add, there's like 6 little tools that comes with it, and you can actually insert them into the little straps on the backpack. It has a rope on it and netting. It's a very well crafted. It's good craftsmanship. It looks like it's gonna hold up. The cane is good. Obviously, it's made of plastic, but that's pretty detailed. It comes with like a beige cross. They call it a crossbody bag. That's probably the weakest part of this figure. And I mean, I have it displayed with it now, but I probably will end up taking it off when it's all said and done. And then the top of it just isn't sewed all that well. It has stuffing in it so that it isn't just flat. The craftsmanship, at least on the one I had, wasn't up to snuff, but I didn't get this figure for a brown cross bag. It comes with a necklace with his kyber crystal. Again, I didn't display it with that. The string on it seems to be a little flimsy, and it's just not one of those things I wanted to go ahead and futz around with. And the way that I have him displayed with his cloak and then the rain poncho on, you wouldn't see it anyway, so it's tucked away. Another pro to having the deluxe version, it does come with another porg. And to be honest, Chris, we talk about all the time about supposedly not being experts in things that seem quite obvious. Well, I put the one porg down with the other 2 that come with the Rey figure, and it's exactly the same. The flying one is exactly the same one that comes with the Rey figure. I was thinking I was getting 3 different porgs, but 2 of them are exactly the same. Oh well,
Man.
that's all right. I have a whole porgus board of porgs. I have 3 hot toy porgs.
Yes, yes. You mean they're not going to sell a little mini pack like the Black Series?
If they do that, I'm buying it. I don't care. I'll have 6. Yeah, I think way back when you did that toy show with you, I couldn't even give those things away to people, the Black Series little boxes they came in. But yeah, that's the accessories. And it does come with his compass that was in Battlefront 2. I think that was a nice little touch to include. Honestly, Chris, I can't say enough good things about this figure. If you're a fan of Luke Skywalker, this is a must-have. I think, obviously, the film being as divisive as it is, I think there'll be a lot of people that will just pass on this out of spite. And that's really unfortunate because I think they're going to miss a really good figure.
Well, everybody that does have it, they'll enjoy it. And hopefully it's one that does sell decently well. But yeah, man, I love your excitement over the figure, and I can't wait to check it out in person. So this figure, what are you going to rate this figure on?
Well, I usually leave that up to you. And I said even in the last podcast, I was going to have you pick, and I ended up picking for you.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Such a lousy co-host.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, man.
I know what it. I'll give you my suggestion after you give yours.
Okay. See, how about I don't know, kyber crystal necklaces?
I was gonna go with porgs. Come on, man.
Why? I thought that was too obvious,
But we are. I mean, we're pretty lame. And
I know, right?
So, all right.
How many porgs in your
it's
board there?
Yeah, it's 4 porgs out of 4, and none of them that have been pre-cooked by Chewbacca.
Aw.
Yeah, this is it's like I said, I'll summarize it again. It's just a must-have. I think it's going to be underrated. I think a lot of people are going to, if they pass on it, I know there's a lot of people out there waiting for the next eBay coupon to drop. I feel like we're way overdue for one of those. We got a bunch of them right up before the holidays, and there hasn't been one. Recording here at the end of January, I'm pretty sure there has not been one in January, if I remember correctly. And I think a lot of people are waiting for that. I will say the deluxe is worth it if you feel like you're going to display the backpack. The Porg is nice. It's not necessarily a must have if you don't like them. The lightning rod staff is not on itself worth getting. So I would say if you want to get this figure and you don't think you display it with a backpack or have him holding it, or right now I have it just leaning up against the stand that he's on, I would say you could probably get away with getting the standard version. But that being said, the backpack is cool, and I feel like it's worth a couple extra dollars to get the deluxe version.
All good things, man. I like it. I like it.
All right, so 4 out of 4 Porgs. Chris, I think it's that time. We're going to switch over to plug time and hit this episode home, our third episode of the month of January. If I can get off my butt and get this edited in time to release on released on January 31st. Three episodes on mere technicality.
It's definitely not July here in New Hampshire.
No, I mean, we're currently across the United States. There's a pretty scary Arctic cold blast coming through. Midwest is temperatures negative 50, negative 60.
Yikes.
Yeah, we'll probably, by the time it hits New Hampshire, I think we're looking at maybe negative 30, which is still cold enough to get you frostbite within a few minutes. And yeah, I'm ready for that warmer weather myself. So plug time, we've got the website, sixscalescavengers.com. We have Hot Toys checklist there. One for Marvel, one for Star Wars. Chris and I do our best to keep that updated as much as possible as new figures drop. We have links to Sideshow. We also have affiliate links to eBay that will direct you directly to the MMS number and as close to the correct product out there as we can. If you click through those links and you purchase one, Chris and I get a few dollar kickback through that affiliate program to put towards the hosting fees of the podcast. And we did just up our monthly limit with Libsyn, so hopefully that will lead to us keeping to a 2-week schedule going forward because we have the bandwidth to do that. We have our TeePublic store. We have a couple of just one design out, a couple different designs out there. We had a couple people that purchased shirts last week, so thank you to those folks. Again, we get a couple dollars on each sale. It goes back to the hosting fee account. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We mentioned it. We have our private group, 6L Scavenger Collectors, on Facebook. If you have a friend or family member that you think would like to tune into this Hot Toys Collecting podcast and listen to Chris and myself, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and directly on Libsyn at 6scavengers.libsyn.com if you want to grab that RSS feed and throw it into your podcast catcher of choice. Couple shout outs to just some friends in the community. PJ the Paradox Nerd on YouTube. He's got video reviews for Hot Toys and statues. Mentioned John a couple times, John Martino with Tashi Station. Full Scale to 6 Scale Collectibles. Our friend Zach over at Collecting Weekly Podcast and their YouTube channel. Just listen to one of the recent episodes. Great stuff. They cover Hot Toys and more. If you like this podcast, give them a listen as well. And finally, we are part of the Brick City Blockade podcast network. Check them out at brickcityblockade.com.
Ah, there you go. Great job.
Yeah. I should just do a recording of it and just play it back every time, but keeps me honest here.
Right.
All right. Any closing thoughts, Chris?
No, just hopefully Hot Toys can enjoy a little bit of a break with the Chinese New Year. And when they get back to work, we get some announcements, some releases, and hopefully we'll be getting Black Panther and Doctor Strange pretty soon.
Sounds good, my friend. All right, hit us home.
Excelsior.